Faith. I'm Robert McMillan, and it's been a while since we've been on YouTube together, and I just hope that you'll be patient with me. I had a lot of studies to do to catch up with the whole issue of the creation of the world, what science claims about it, and what religion claims about it, and finally, how the Bible puts it all together and makes sense of it. So we're going to get started with that, but before we do that, I'd like to read you a poem. And it's a poem that's going to help you understand where I'm coming from. Genesis 1 through 11, particularly Genesis chapter 1. It's a historical narrative that has poetic effects in it that have to be understood. When you're talking about the actual creation of the universe, we have to understand that this was an act of art, literature, and beauty. Not simply a mechanical process that scientists say it was. And I've found in my reading of, let me just show you. Read about Einstein. And then here's a book by Einstein on relativity. That's a fun read. And then another book about Einstein's relativity. Then the origin of the universe, and it goes on and on and on and on. And here's a guy who says, well, life came from somewhere else. And he was one of the top astrophysicists of his day. That's about the 1940s, 50s, 60s. But he's completely rejected today. And he held to a steady state, which can't work because the second law of thermodynamics is fully engaged and we're heading towards entropy. Anyway, but I want to let you know, read a bunch of stuff. I even go back into, we'll get to it in a minute. Let me just read you this poem, and there's a word in it I have to explain, and it's the word diapason. A diapason is that organ stop in which all the large pipes, the 8-foot and bigger pipes, are pulled together and opened up, and it's a swelling harmony, kind of a ta-da moment. So that's what a diapason is. When they put their pipe organs in warp drive, that's what comes out. So understand what the diapason is. It is a stop on a pipe organ. So let me read this. It's a narrative about the creation. It's called A Song for St. Cecilia's Day by John Dryden, who wrote in the 17th century. He was a Restoration poet and playwright. So here it is. And I'm only going to read the first and the last stanzas. The first stanza and then the grand chorus at the end. It's too long to go through the whole process here. But I encourage you to read the entire poem. From heavenly harmony, this universal frame began, when nature underneath a heap of jarring atoms lay, and could not heave her head. The tuneful voice was heard from on high. Arise, ye more than dead, then cold and hot and moist and dry, in order to their stations leap, and music's power obey. From heavenly harmony, this universal frame began. From harmony to harmony, through all the compass of the notes it ran, the diapason closing full in man. That's John Dryden, an English poet writing about the creation. And here's the last stanza. It's called the grand chorus. As from the power of sacred lays the spheres began to move, and sung the great Creator's praise to all the blessed above. So when the last and dreadful hour this crumbling pageant shall devour, the trumpet shall be heard on high, the dead shall live, the living die, and music shall untune the sky. In that last grand chorus, John Dryden ties in the creation with the final statement of God in making a brand new universe from the debris of our sinful universe in which we live now. Many years ago, I was made deliriously happy to serve the United States government as an Army soldier in Vietnam. It was a thrill a minute. I was stationed on the demilitarized zone in a unit of 4 observers for the artillery. Basically it was, "McMillan, go stick your head up, and if anybody shoots at you, call it in." In simplest terms, that's what it was like. Anyway, I was there and I learned a lot. One of the things I learned is that you cannot hit a target with a howitzer unless you know 2 things. You need to know exactly where your target is, but you also need to know exactly where your gun is. Now, if you don't know where your gun is, you can fire knowing exactly where your target is, but you will never hit it. We have a similar problem today with the religion of scientific materialism, because scientists, for the most part today, don't know the location of the target. In other words, there's no meaning to it. What is the point of it all? What's the purpose of it? They haven't a clue as to the why, nor do they know the starting point. Where did everything come from? And they guess at it. They come with oscillating universe, string theory, and dark matter, and dark energy, and all this stuff is just pure speculation. It's not science, it's supposition. Now, I spent the last month dodging making another video because I've been doing a lot of reading and rereading of old texts I haven't seen for a long time, like the Enuma Elish. It's an early Babylonian creation myth. And Gilgamesh and Aristotle. By the way, Aristotle, interesting enough, let me find him. Aristotle says everything has always existed. Well, he didn't know about the laws of thermodynamics, so he couldn't have said that. So he couldn't have known that. And then there's good old Plato. He wrote about Socrates and Socrates' various discourses and discussions and arguments with friends and acquaintances. And in one of those Socratic dialogues, he's talking to a fellow named Polycrates. And it's in the Socratic dialogue of Philebus. It's a hard read, and it's not this long. It's just one of many that are in this book. But if you read Philebus, you will find out that Socrates said, in Plato's words, nothing makes sense if there's not an intelligent design behind what is designed. Things don't come from random acts. Things come from plans. And you can read about it in Plato. Now, Plato was wrong on a whole lot of things, and so was Aristotle. But here's guys with nothing more than their brains, and they were talking about the fact that there had to be intelligent design and an intelligent designer to come up with something that was intelligent, such as a designed universe, a purposeful universe. And then you would come to the Hindu creation myths, particularly the Puranas, which were some of the earliest of the Hindu stories about the creation. And then we come to the Greeks with Hesiod's Theogony, and he talks about how the Greeks created the Greek gods, and he talks about how the Greek gods created everything. I read more Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking than I care to remember. 2 intelligent men, but they were devoid of wisdom, therefore they were foolish. And this was the best they could come up with. Now, I grant you, Albert Einstein and probably Stephen Hawking has a few points of IQ on me. But they didn't make any difference. They still came up with foolish statements. Because the Bible says, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. And both these men made that claim. Stephen Hawking more than Albert Einstein. Einstein kept calling him the old one, I think in mockery. And as a result, the theories that they come up with and the suppositions they come up with are going to be proven completely wrong. But yet they came so close to being pretty doggone right. And it's sad because they left God out of the picture. They left the Creator out of the creation, and as a result, it was failure. Tragically, since they have both died, they now know the truth, but it will do them no good If they died without Jesus Christ, they died without salvation. So I want you to remember as we get into this, God created a universe for us to dwell in and for him to fellowship with us, and it was designed to show his glory and to bring us pleasure. We're going to go into how the creation and the final culmination and recreation that's found in Revelation are tied together tightly. And that God, who started to make a universe, a creation, if you will, that was good, in other words, perfect and beautiful and complete, he's going to remake that someday when he deals with sin, when he removes it from the creation. The next time you're tempted to be favorably impressed by someone who touts evolution or a godless universe creation, I want you to remember a man, Richard Cory. This is another poem. It's a poem by my favorite poet, Edwin Arlington Robinson, of the early 20th century, very early 20th century, in America. And if you don't remember it, Simon and Garfunkel wrote a song about him. They didn't do as good a job with it as Arlington Robinson did. But anyway, let me read this poem to you and see where that's heading. Whenever Richard Cory went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. He was a gentleman from sole to crown, clean-favored and imperially slim. And he was always quietly arrayed, and he was always human when he talked, but still he fluttered pulses when he said, "Good morning," and he glittered when he walked. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. In fine, we thought that he was everything to make us wish that we were in his place. That's what some of these so-called brainiacs, these scientists, try to impress us about. So on we worked and waited for the light, and went without the meat and cursed the bread. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head. The meaninglessness of a godless creation in which we live and live out our lives under the sun, it has only death and destruction ahead of it. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head. At the end of the day, any day, this truth is still sovereign. Here it is. The most densely packed and informative statement on the beginning of the universe is found in Genesis 1:1. It's scientifically correct, but it's poetic, and it's a historical narrative, all wrapped up into one. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. When Adam and Eve sinned against God and the creation was so badly damaged that it couldn't be fixed without a recreation, God had a plan before that happened, and he has not been thwarted in carrying out that plan. The book of Revelation talks about how he finishes his plan for us and for his glory. And it's all right there in the book of Revelation. So we were making jumps into the book of Revelation throughout these first chapters of Genesis. And I hope you'll be patient, stick with me, and learn from it. And if you would, read Genesis 1 and 2, and then Revelation 21. God is going to complete what he determined to do, and you can read about it in Revelation. Join me next week for the light from the beginning to the end. So we're going to go on from here into Genesis 1, 2, and talk about how God created light and what its purpose was, and how it functions in our lives now and in the future. Till then, God bless you. Keep reading your Bible.